Your wife is a German speaker.
Well, my children are too, yeah.
Does that make you feel uncomfortable?
No, because they can speak English, and the whole point about
How do you know those people couldn't?
Well, maybe they could, but I got the distinct feeling that it certainly wasn't their language of choice. And if you look at the primary school situation in the East End of London, where you've now got schools where a majority don't speak English, doesn't that say to us?
You've got
doesn't
schools...
that say to us? Doesn't that say to us that what we want is a sensible, balanced immigration policy, where we want people with skills to come into Britain, but we also want integration in society.
Of course we do. And the schools you refer to, the pupils you refer to, are registered and recorded as having English as a second language. They're not registered and recorded as not being able to speak English. That's precisely that sort of...
some are both.
Well, yes, but no one's counted them, so your own children would fit in.
Nigel Farage built his entire career on one promise, that he says the things the political class won't say out loud. So here's a chance to actually test that promise. No script to hide behind. Over the next few minutes, watch what happens every single time James O'Brien asks him something specific. There's a council candidate who tweeted about genetics. There's a company that owed the taxman over £120,000. There's even a lunch Farage once had with a man who wrote about the mind-benders of the media. Now each time Farage does answer. But listen closely, because it's almost never the question that got asked. If that sounds familiar, it should. It's the same move populist politicians have been making for years, on both sides of the Atlantic. The specifics quietly disappear, and in their place, you get a grievance. About the media, about the elites, about everyone except the actual question in front of him.
There you'll see a very welcome but unexpected guest in the studio this morning. I don't know if you were listening to Nigel Farage's phone-in with Nick Ferrari last week. If you were, you'll have heard this.
And I just wondered how it feels to be keep getting called a racist.
Yeah, I mean, this is the political class clubbing together, using their mates in the media and doing anything they can to stop the UKIP charge. And because we've got a few idiots in our party, as by the way does every other party, somebody in some part of England says something stupid or offensive on Twitter at midnight, and this is held up as being representative of the view of the party.
Nigel Farage is with me now. Let's start with today's idiots, shall we? And then move on to what you mean by the political class and their friends in the media. We got John Lyndon Sullivan, I think, overnight. It's emerged, he tweeted, he's a councillor of yours in Gloucestershire. I rather often wonder if we shot one pufter, whether the next 99 would decide on balance that they weren't after all. We might then conclude that it's not a matter of genetics, but rather more a matter of education. Admittedly, a fairly small fry in the UKIP machine, not a description you could apply to your small business spokesman who, it turned out this morning, has employed 7 illegal immigrants in the last year.
Well, they're two different things, aren't they? I mean, firstly...
Well, I don't know. Are they both idiots?
Firstly, people saying silly things. Yeah, of course, we've had more of it than we would like. But hey, hang on a second. What's going on in the other parties? I mean, we just got the news...
I'll ask them when they're here, Nigel, but I'm talking about your party
today. That's the point. Nobody ever does ask them, and that's the point I'm making, is I'm perfectly happy for us to have a debate about our idiots and our people who are offensive.
So what happens to John Lyndon Sullivan, then, for that tweet?
He's not a councillor, is he? He's a council candidate.
I think he's already in the council.
Is he? I don't know. I haven't heard of his name.
Well, he's got your party's name on his ballot paper.
I haven't heard of... Well, there's a big difference between being on the ballot paper and being an elected councillor. One comes after the other.
He is an elected councillor.
Is he? Fine. I didn't know that. We have had people...
So what happens to him now?
He will face a disciplinary charge of whether he's brought the party into disrepute.
That was on the 17th of February.
Was it? I don't know.
Okay. What about the small business spokesman who employs 7 illegal immigrants?
Well, I think be a little bit careful on that story. He founded a business which he's no longer a director of. His sons run it. They have got a big row going on.
He resigned, to be clear, as a director of the company 3 days after the immigration raid.
Yeah, I know that.
Yeah.
He's resigned as a director.
After the immigration raid.
He's not running, but he wasn't responsible for the day-to-day running of it. However, I've spoken to him this morning. He says they made checks and they are in dispute with the immigration authorities and they've gone to appeal. So we'll have to see how that plays out. But that doesn't make him an idiot,
What does it make him?
Well, we don't know. Let's find out what happens here. Maybe somebody in his business has made a mistake. I do not believe for a moment he would have done that.
Seven mistakes.
I do not believe for a moment he would have done that, knowing that he was running as a candidate for us in the European elections. My argument, James, is this. Wherever we have found people who have had extreme, racist, unpleasant views, we've unceremoniously got rid of them. Furthermore, I've tried to protect the party by making absolutely clear that anybody that had previously been a member of the BNP or organisations like that cannot even join as a member. And to hold up the views of a handful of people as being representative of UKIP, frankly, isn't the truth.
Well, okay. What about your associations with the BNP? If we go back to 1997, when you had lunch with a chap called Devin, who, as you know, is responsible for writing an astonishing, his expose of Jews in the media was called Mind Benders. You were photographed with him. It was reported at the time that you're a man who often used words such as nig-nog and the N-word that Jeremy Clarkson recently got into trouble for in the pub after committee meetings. And a month after that lunch, Devin wrote an article for the far-right journal Spearhead suggesting that the BNP and UKIP get into bed together. How does something like that happen?
Well, because Mr. Devin was brought into the centre of UKIP by the chap at the time who was the leader, and turned out to be something very different. And I've never seen him since that day.
Well, no, the lunch you had with him was after he was expelled.
Yeah, I wanted to find out why.
Find out why what?
Why somebody like him, who had been held up to me as a great academic, he was going to make a very big difference.
But you'd seen what he'd written.
With a book.
The Grand Plan, The Origins of Non-White Immigration.
I wanted to find out what on earth had made somebody change their point of view. Nothing more than that. I haven't spoken to him since. As for the allegations, as what I said in a pub after committee meetings, you will not find a single other member of that committee who makes that allegation.
Alan Sked has.
I know he has.
The founder of
yes,
UKIP.
I know. Well,
you just said I wouldn't find anyone else. The founder of your party has made the same allegation.
He was the person that made the allegation. Nobody else has made the allegation. Mr. Devin didn't make the allegation. Dr. Sked made the allegation.
So,
and, in politics, all sorts of disappointments happen to people and they throw mud.
Yeah, of course. So what about the mud that's been thrown about the far-right parties with which you sit in Europe? The Danish People's Party, the True Finns Party, the Dutch SGP, and perhaps most interestingly, the Lega Nord. I think you co-chair, do you, that group with
yes,
Francesco Speroni? He described Anders Breivik as someone whose ideas are in defence of Western civilization.
No, he didn't, actually. He didn't. One of his members did, and we kicked him out of the group.
No, you're thinking of Maria Borghesio, who went further and said in a radio interview that Breivik had some excellent ideas. But Speroni himself, who is your co-chair of this group, said that Breivik's ideas are in defence of Western civilization.
If you were to come with me to Italy or Poland or Slovakia and listen to the political discourse, you would realise how incredibly different it is to what we would consider to be acceptable in this country. What I have done in the European Parliament is to try and draw a line and to say we will not sit with people who we believe to be on the extremes. We will sit with people who we believe to have a reasonable, balanced point of view. Now, let's be honest, we have had a problem in this group with one or two members of the Northern League.
Why don't you just leave it?
Well, we could leave it, and in fact we made sure Mr. Borghesio left our group. But equally, the Conservative Party had the bloke who celebrated the SS invasion of the Baltic states, and we have said, and I'm sure you know this.
But why don't you leave it?
We have said that we will not sit, with the Front National and parties like the Austria Freedom Party. We've made that perfectly clear. We are not a party that wants to be linked to the far right. But I promise you, if you look at the associations everybody has to form in the European Parliament, a degree of compromise is needed.
Well, this is what moves us on to the question about the political class that you referred to in your description of my fears about some of the positions that UKIP seems to represent. Because all of your defence thus far has been, well, we're no different from any other political party, and yet your whole unique selling point for many of your fans and supporters is that you are different. Well, so I think the phrase you used was that the members of the political class and their friends in the media. So let's run through that. You currently write columns for The Express and The Independent every week.
Yeah.
You've been on Question Time, I think, in recent months more often than anyone except David Dimbleby. The Private Eye has reported that some of your medical bills are paid by one of the owners.
Hang on, I'm not having this.
Why not?
I'm not having libel thrown at me on, live on the radio.
Are you taking legal action against Private Eye?
My medical bills have not been paid by anybody, all right? Other than partly by myself, more than I could afford, and the rest by an insurer. All right?
Okay.
Let's
so
be clear
will you be taking legal action against Private Eye?
I may do. At the moment, it might surprise you, I'm busy running an election campaign, so I'll think about that afterwards.
Okay, too busy to know who's standing on the council in Gloucestershire under your own banner.
I lead a political party.
Okay, so
I don't run the day-to-day management of it, but I make sure that we stick to our principles, and we've done that.
And your principles involve sitting
as for the political class.
Yes.
Look, I was in business. I came into politics motivated above all by one desire, and that is not for the UK to be part of a political union run by the bureaucrats in Brussels. Now, whether you agree or disagree with that, I have actually given up and sacrificed a huge amount to do that.
Have you? Because the last business you were involved in was, I think you resigned as company secretary 6 weeks before it was wound up by the Inland Revenue?
No, that was the last company I was a director of. Okay, the last company I ran was my own company, which I ran for 9 years and which closed down in good standing.
Okay, so you weren't company secretary of Farage.
I was company secretary, yes,
right.
but
and you resigned 6 weeks before.
It was a non-income related job. I wasn't paid a penny for being company secretary.
Well, presumably, because if they owed 120 grand to the Inland Revenue, there wasn't any money around to pay you anything.
I did the job, doing somebody in my family a favour. It was unpaid. It wasn't.
But you
unpaid.
represent
It wasn't my
yourself,
business.
Nigel, very effectively as an alternative to cronyism
Yep.
and city spivery. And you were company secretary of a company that was wound up by the Inland Revenue, owing over £120,000 to the revenue.
Wrong.
Okay, so what would you like to correct?
The company has not been wound up. The company.
Why did
and
you
it's not-
resign?
hang on a second.
Okay.
The company, which is not my company, it's somebody else's
You're
company.
company secretary.
And I don't own any shares in the company. I was doing a favour for somebody on an unpaid basis. The company, far from winding up, actually said we have a responsibility to make sure our tax bill is paid, and it is being paid. Actually, it's being paid out of earned income. So the Inland Revenue is getting twice the money out of it that it would have done to begin with.
After the winding up order was issued.
The company has not been wound up.
Just to be clear, I don't have a city background.
The company has not been wound up, all right? The company still exists, it's active, and it's in the business of paying back the money that it owes.
After the winding up order was issued by the Inland Revenue.
Have you ever worked in private business? You know, people have successes and people have failures.
No, I'm an ordinary person. I don't understand how these financial institutions
There are
operate.
4.8 million people out there running small businesses. I bet a lot of them listening to this now. And many of them will have had ups and downs. Many of them will have had cash flow problems. Some of them will have had firms that didn't work, but a subsequent one that did. I myself, in the private sector, ran my own firm for 9 years without any difficulty or problems at all. And the point is, I came to do this because I want to engage on the big political debates and issues of the day. And the frustration is this, that, and I'm not, putting this to you because it doesn't matter where I go. All anyone wants to talk about are the idiots in UKIP. There's never a conversation about the idiots in the Labour Party, the 5 councillors who've just resigned on racism charges in Middlesbrough.
To be honest, I never
and all
hear
the
you
rest of
say
it.
anything else when you're questioned about your own party.
And the problem is, we're not having a debate about the European
But
Union.
people aren't worried that
We're
the
not
Labour
having a
Party or
debate.
the Conservative Party is spreading racist propaganda.
Well, why
people
the Conservative Party got a former BNP activist standing for them in Lincolnshire? Will you ask the Conservative?
Of course I will. Absolutely.
No, but you won't, you see, because
well,
nobody
now
ever
you're calling
does.
me a liar. Of course,
but nobody
of
ever
course I will.
does
But I've
ask those
answered your
questions.
question. The reason
Anyway.
why it doesn't possess the same urgency as the UKIP conversation does is A, the question of quantity. There is simply not the avalanche of bigotry emerging from other
Oh, yes,
parties
there
that
is.
emerges from yours.
Oh, yes, there
and
is.
B, perhaps more pertinently for you then, there is not a fear abroad afoot. There is not a fear in the country. The opinion polls do not report significant swathes of the nation who are fearful, possibly wrongly, Nigel, that your party represents deeply divisive and racist ideas. If you'd let me finish, let me just move on then to that invitation to go overseas and listen to conversations in other countries where perhaps far-right politics are not viewed as askance as they are in this country. You've mentioned your discomfort at listening to foreign languages on a train recently.
I made the point that I got on a train and went for several stops, and there were a lot of people around me, and no one spoke English. And I thought, this is. I didn't say I didn't object to it. I felt slightly uncomfortable. And I think actually, isn't that the problem? Isn't this, of all the countries in Europe, the most accepting, the most tolerant?
You said I don't feel very comfortable in that situation. You did say you had a problem.
I didn't feel comfortable. No.
Yes, your wife is a German speaker.
Well, my children are too. Yeah.
Does that make you feel uncomfortable?
No, because they can speak English, and the whole point about
how do you know those people couldn't?
Well, maybe they could, but I got the distinct feeling that it certainly wasn't their language of choice. And if you look at the primary school situation in the East End of London, where you've now got schools where a majority don't speak English, doesn't that say?
No, you've got
doesn't
schools.
That say to us? Doesn't that say to us that what we want is a sensible, balanced immigration policy? Where we want people with skills to come into Britain, but we also want integration in society.
Of course we do. And the schools you refer to, the pupils you refer to, are registered and recorded as having English as a second language. They're not registered and recorded as not being able to speak English. That's precisely that sort
and
of...
some of both.
Well, yes, but no one's counted them, so your own children would fit into that category.
Well, hopefully, lots of people can speak different languages, but the point I'm making is, do we want to live in an integrated society?
No, forgive me. The point you're making is that schools in the East End are full of children who can't speak English. I just want you to recognise that's not true, what you just said.
Come from
the
homes.
children who are typified as speaking English as a second language would include your own daughters. Their mother tongue being German.
They come from homes where English is most definitely not the first language, and in too many cases is not the language at all. Now look,
But no one's counted how many people are in the second category.
And it would be a very helpful and useful thing if they did, and perhaps we'd be even more surprised and even more shocked. But the argument...
Or perhaps we'd realise that most bilingual children in this country are children like yours.
Well, let's turn it around the other way, shall we?
Yes, let's.
Let's talk about immigration. Let's talk about Europe. Let's talk about the European elections. I am making one very simple point. We cannot have any form of managed migration into Britain and remain a member of the European Union because we have an open door to nearly 500 million people. And the argument, James, I'm putting is this. We'd be far better to have an immigration policy that didn't, as it currently does, discriminate against engineers from India or doctors from New Zealand in favour of anybody, regardless of skill levels or backgrounds, coming from Southern and Eastern Europe. And that is the great debate. And when Nick Clegg took me on, and I tried to have that debate with him, and he was very reluctant on that particular point to engage. Cameron and Miliband run a country mile away from that debate, and that, I think, is at the heart of our relationship with Europe.
Indeed, and I mean, if that was the debate that you'd offered to have on this programme, we'd have it now. But what the caller asked you was why so many people think you're racist.
Yeah, well, I think, yes, we've had our idiots.
And part of the answer would be, you talk about children who can't speak English as a first language without mentioning it includes your own children.
I mean, what is racism? Is racism between races? I mean, I was talking about.
Well, don't you know? How can you say you're not something if you don't know what it is?
I mean, is race about colour? Is race about race, or is it about nationality? I made a comment there that wasn't intended to say any more than I felt uncomfortable about the rate and pace of change and numbers of people.
No, you felt uncomfortable about people speaking foreign languages, despite the fact that presumably your own wife does when she phones home to Germany.
Yeah, I don't suppose she speaks it on the train,
That's why not? Is she not allowed to? Can't she speak German wherever she wants? And what about the line about not wanting to live next door to Romanians? It's perfectly acceptable for people not to.
I was asked, if a group of Romanian men moved in next door to you, would you be concerned?
What about if a group of German children did? What's the difference?
The difference, and you know what the difference is.
No, I honestly don't. This is, I think, where the disconnect is between your position and mine. What is the difference?
We want an immigration policy based on controlling not just quantity but quality as well. And we have a problem that and unfortunately, those communist countries which I visited, and I visited the Roma encampments, and I've seen the real poverty that people live in, and we talk about exclusion in society. Go and see, since the fall of communism, what has happened to the Roma communities in those countries. They don't get jobs, they get nowhere to live, and they have been forced, in many cases, to a life of crime. And what has happened with an open door is it's been an open invitation for the traffickers. Now, we all know this is going on.
Okay.
The Metropolitan Police...
Trafficking is a crime, of course.
Trafficking is a crime.
And trafficked people are victims of crime.
Yes, and the Metropolitan Police have produced their crime statistics, and they're eye-watering, and I'm saying, let's get a grip on it.
I know you're saying that about Romanians, but why can't you understand how many people feel troubled that you're also talking about them? 32 million people are looking for jobs in Europe, and that big clunking fist pointing, saying that they're coming...
That was a provocative poster.
They're coming for your job. That frightens people. People who are already here working. People who my children go to school with. Their parents are troubled by the idea that they're now being demonised and typified. And you gloss so smoothly and so slickly over demonising Romanians and demonising Germans.
I'm not demonising anybody.
You just asked you a question about Romanians and you started talking about people traffickers.
I'm demonising a political class that has allowed us to have an open door to allow things like this to happen.
Okay, so when I say Romanian and you start talking about people traffickers, why didn't you say people are perfectly entitled to feel uncomfortable about living next door to people traffickers, wherever they're from? Why did you say Romanians?
I didn't say Romanians. I was asked a question. If a group of Romanian men moved in next to you, would you be concerned? And if you lived in London, I think you would be.
Yes. It's reported this morning, Nigel, that you pulled out of an interview on London Live because there was no makeup artist.
What a load of rubbish.
That's what
I'm sorry. That's what I thought you can accuse me of many things, but not that.
Well, I've tried to, and I'm delighted you're so happy. I'm still utterly unpersuaded as to why you sit on a party with the leader of the Italian Lega Nord, a member of the Anders Breivik fan club. I'm completely I do not understand why you use words like Romanian when describing who you would and would not want to live next door to. I don't understand why you're uncomfortable listening to foreign languages when your own wife and children speak them, and I don't understand why you talk about problems in primary schools that are caused by children like your own.
Why don't you? I tell you what. Why don't you come and meet UKIP's black and ethnic candidate? Hang on.
Some of my best friends.
Hang on. Well, very interesting. Did you see the opinion poll at the weekend that showed amongst the BME community, UKIP is now polling at 16%. We're getting more BME voters than the Conservatives and Lib Dems added up together. So there are a large number...
I will come with you, and you come with me and meet the opinion poll also at this weekend that found, I think, just over 40% of voters who think that your party is racist. What do you think you've done in the last 20 minutes? I know we don't have any longer. I was hoping for an hour, but what do you think you've done in the last 20 minutes to assuage the fears of those people?
Made it clear to people that actually controlling the quantity and quality of people that come into your country is a primary duty of government, and we cannot do it as members of the European Union.
And finally, the question of your expenses and your financial arrangements. I heard you on Radio 4 saying that you'd submit to a full audit. You've reverse ferreted on that on the grounds that other MEPs don't. So these are the transparency arrangements that all Labour MEPs sign up for. Can you sign up for those today?
They don't actually. What they do is they have an auditor
more than you.
Make sure they spend the money in accordance with the rules.
Yes.
There are no expenses.
But you say that as if there's something wrong with it. They have an auditor to make sure they spend the money in accordance with the rules.
Sorry, we had an agreement about timing. You've massively...
This is Patrick O'Flynn, UKIP's Director of Communications and former political commentator on the Daily Express. Is this a friend in the media or a member of the political class?
There are no expenses. These are allowances, fixed rate allowances, which I've spent in accordance with the rules.
So will you go for the audit that all Labour MEPs go for?
We will make a decision en masse.
Yeah, well, yes or no, Nigel, you're in charge.
But I'm very suspicious of the word audit used in that context.
Are you?
Yes. Very.
Okay. Nigel Farage, many thanks for your time. And
by the end of this interview, a pattern starts to show itself pretty clearly. Ask Farage about a colleague's finances, and somehow the answer turns into a speech about how hard it is to run a small business. Ask him about a lunch with a man later tied to far-right publishing, and suddenly the story becomes about his own curiosity, not the company he was keeping. Ask him whether foreign languages make him uncomfortable, and he holds that line right up until his own family enters the conversation. Then, funnily enough, the line moves. And look, none of this is unique to Farage, or to this decade for that matter. It's the same mechanism you'll find in populist rhetoric again and again. Redirect toward the establishment, treat scrutiny like it's persecution, and let discomfort about people quietly stand in for an actual argument about policy. What makes this interview worth watching again isn't the year it aired. It's how familiar the choreography still feels. The deflections haven't aged a day. Only the faces delivering them have changed. If you want to actually understand moments like this, instead of just reacting to them, you're in the right place. Stick around. By the end of this interview, a pattern starts to show itself pretty clearly. Ask Farage about a colleague's finances, and somehow the answer turns into a speech about how hard it is to run a small business. Ask him about a lunch with a man later tied to far-right publishing, and suddenly the story becomes about his own curiosity, not the company he was keeping. Ask him whether foreign languages make him uncomfortable, and he holds that line right up until his own family enters the conversation. Then, funnily enough, the line moves. And look, none of this is unique to Farage, or to this decade for that matter. It's the same mechanism you'll find in populist rhetoric again and again. Redirect toward the establishment, treat scrutiny like it's persecution, and let discomfort about people quietly stand in for an actual argument about policy. What makes this interview worth watching again isn't the year it aired, it's how familiar the choreography still feels. The deflections haven't aged a day, only the faces delivering them have changed. If you want to actually understand moments like this, instead of just reacting to them, you're in the right place. Stick around.